Ken, I've not seen you for a while, mate. How are you doing?
Hello. Nice to be seen, mate. Nice to see you. And
Excellent.
the further we are apart when I see you, the better.
Oh, mate, honestly, what are you doing wearing your dressing gown tonight? Are you lounging around like you
I
typically
think you'll find,
would?
mate, this is an R.M. Williams garment, the garment of choice for the best dressed men in the modern world, certainly the ghetto of Harpenden.
I see. Yeah. That's
So
very nice.
I think my repertoire, mate, my wardrobe of R.M. Williams apparel, I believe, is one of the best in Harpenden.
I'm sure, mate. To be brutally honest with you, mate, I've never heard of R.M. Williams. Is he relation to J.P.R. Williams?
Yeah. I'm just going to say yeah.
Anyway,
but it's certainly not a dressing gown, mate. I'm glad
to hear it, mate. I'm glad to hear it. So we are back. We are back. Under the Bar podcast 2024. We've been away. For those astute viewers, stroke listeners, you will have identified there is only two of us.
There is
Steve Kenworthy. He's no longer with us. In a sense, he's not with us, but he is obviously still alive. He will be joining us. He'll be joining us in Vegas next week. But anyway, Steve and ourselves had some editorial differences. Steve basically wanted to can off the podcast, and we didn't. So here we are as a duo, mate. So it has been a while.
Not letting hyperbole get in the way of Fat Gary. I think it's probably worth pointing out. Actually, Steve is in Tenerife this week. I believe he's quaffing Estrella by the gallon. So to
be first, Ken, that was one of the problems, wasn't it? We were always trying to find time around Steve and his holidays. I mean, it was a running joke, wasn't it?
Steve's a well-travelled man. He's the only bloke I know that has 8 holidays a year.
Yes, indeed.
I think that's fair to say.
He has a spreadsheet. He has a spreadsheet with them all.
He likes a spreadsheet.
He does, mate. He does. How do you like the setup? My gig in the room. This is my office now. So when I'm having Teams meetings during the day, I always have this book here. Can you see this book here?
I can.
Rugby League.
I can see it says Rugby League, mate. But your camera. Hope you don't have work conversations on this camera, because it's.
Oh no, I do. It's not the best, mate. Oh no, it's not the best. It's not the best. I've not really got the lighting in here to
but also your
lots of like different Rugby League related bits and pieces in the background here. Some good books.
I can see a Tom Clancy book and a Tony Blair book.
But we got a Longy, Sean Long, Longy, and anyway, enough of this twaddle. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a little chat about some of the talking points of the Rugby League week. Then we're going to tuck into our predictions for the Super League and the NRL ladders. We've reached out to the great and the good of the game.
Luminaries.
Got some feedback. Say again, mate.
Luminaries of the local Rugby League world.
World Rugby League. The world of Rugby League, in actual fact. Some contributions from down under.
It's definitely
and then to conclude, we're going to have a little chat about Vegas, because we are going to Vegas next week. For those who don't know, it's the start of the NRL season, and then having a double header out in Las Vegas.
Indeed.
In that big old stadium that hosted the Super Bowl a couple of weeks ago. So very excited about that. And hopefully we'll have a nice bit of chat along the way. So Ken, World Club Challenge. What was your view on that, mate?
I thought it was a decent performance from Wigan. I thought it was tradesman-like. I don't think you'd say that was. Maybe the pitch didn't help. Maybe, and this is always the problem with the World Club Challenge, at the start of the season. So you've got teams which to some extent are the same teams that finished last season and won the title, but they're new teams. They've got new players in them. That's always going to be the way. No matter where they hold the game, you're always going to have one team travelling halfway around the world. So it leads to a little bit of. It's not the most fluent of games, I think, but I think it tends to keep them pretty competitive. And I thought this was a pretty competitive game. I don't think you can get much closer than a game which where the result is hinging on the very last second, which is what happened. A potential try, no try, we can talk about that. But that happened in the last second of the game. So it was competitive right to the end. Some pretty interesting calls. I think by and large they were right. I know the referees have copped a lot of stick for it. Liam Moore, very good referee, in my opinion. just wonder as well, because I watched it on the BBC, and I don't know whether the lighting was up to scratch. And I think a couple of times when the ball was on the ground, it was difficult to see. I just wonder whether it was a daytime game, or if it was had better lighting. I wonder if that would have illuminated the ball a little more.
I could do a better light in this room on that point.
Well,
but anyway,
but I mean, the point is, the referee is on the spot. He's probably got the closest viewpoint, and he's probably the most trained mind looking at a potential grounding. We've got all the replays, I guess, as does the video referee. If they can't come to a conclusive call,
just interjecting, mate. Do you feel he was well positioned for the Wardle try? Do you think he had a good view of it, and do you think he just made an assumption? Maybe that's a gross thing to say, but I cannot see how he would have made an educated decision on that, and then left the video ref with very little option. He had to find something conclusive to say it was not a try. If he'd awarded it as not a try, he could have given it as a try, and I think that was a bit of a failing. I think that was a big failing, to be truthful.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the thing is with referees, they can only be where they start from. They can't be instantly in a different position, and they're moving constantly. There's a lot that they need to be juggling. I do naturally defend referees, being an ex-referee myself, but I think the criticism that you're making would be of the structure, the way that tries are handed up to the video referee is probably something that you might want to comment on, because it never used to be the case, if you go back a few years ago, that referees would need to offer an opinion. They could just send it up. But it has been the case for a number of years where they have to offer an opinion. And maybe this is a good example. This is the point you're making, I think, where maybe if the referee's not particularly well cited, maybe we should have the option for a referee to send up a query, a try or no try question, if he's unsighted or if he doesn't know. He can only make the call. The way the rules are set up now, he can only make the call as he sees fit. It's also worth pointing out that the laws of the game are that unless the referee sees a reason why a try shouldn't be scored, and this is the same with the video referee, but I'm thinking of the match referee now, unless there's a reason why that try shouldn't be scored, the advantage should favour the attacking team. That's always been the way in rugby league as far as I can remember. So, and that's a good thing, I think, to favour the attacking team. Don't go looking for reasons not to award a try. Mm-hmm. If there's a reason why it's not a try, great, then that's the ruling. But I think if there's, I do think, I wasn't sure whether the ball got on the line. I think at the start I would say that wasn't the case. By the time players had stopped moving, I think there possibly was a good chance that the ball was on the line. So, it's hard to say. Probably the only people that will really know, mate, will be the players immediately around the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking to be overly critical of Liam Moore, because, as you rightly say, he's a decent referee and has taken a lot of criticism as a result of that decision. But yeah, you're right. I think structurally it's wrong, because I just don't think he could have really had he couldn't be 100% confident from his position that there was a try scored, and I was amazed that he went to say try. But I was amazed.
So you're amazed that he could be confident enough to make that call, but are we not also equally amazed that we could watch that replay 10 times and still not be sure? So is this a false comparison? We're expecting him to make an instant reaction to be accurate for it, and yet us with the luxury of instant replays from multiple angles still can't be sure. How are we then still saying it's a criticism of him for not knowing? Because split second.
Yeah, very true. But in my view, it wasn't a try, and from his position, because he was behind the melee, shall we say, I can't understand how he thought it was a try. How he could say confidently it was a try. So if there's an inkling of doubt in his mind, he would have said no try and taken it to the video referee. But
he's got to make that call, and he might have had some feedback from his touch judges. You just don't know. He might have been judging on player movement, likely position of the ball. Lots of things could have fed into that. And again, as I say, a touch judge could have offered some advice. He's got to make a call somehow. If he could have just said, I don't have a view, I'm unsighted, I don't have a view. If the laws of the game allowed him to do that, then he might well have done that, but we'll never know.
Well, he's certainly getting a fair old cop. He's certainly copping a fair old bit of criticism from down under as well. A lot of
it's unlike rugby league.
Learned Australians are offering their view, and in fact, I think there were two incidents where the last play was as exciting as it was. He didn't matter because he didn't cross, and it didn't really matter, did it, at the end of the day, because he didn't. But I think the try that I think Cruz Leeming scored, you could certainly have argued for 2 line ball passes, if not forward passes. I thought the first one was fine.
I thought the second one might have been an issue, but we've talked about this in rugby league since Jesus played fullback for Nazareth, and we'll talk about it forever.
Yeah.
What constitutes a forward pass, and it's a difficult one to adjudicate on. And watching it in a 2-dimensional medium like TV is often a little bit harder. It's all about where the position of the hands are. The ball travel forward, that's not a problem. And virtually every pass which is past that speed will have an element of forward travel to it. It's unavoidable. It's just physics, isn't it? So it's a real hard one. I thought the second one might have been forward.
Yeah. Anyway, putting all the refereeing controversy to one side, what were your other sort of highlights of the game? What were your sort of overall view in terms of those bits of brilliance that sort of stuck with you after then you sort of reflect back and thought, that was decent?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a doer game, actually. I don't know, there was a lot of spectacular play for me. Mm-hmm. And I think for all the reasons I mentioned at the start. So, it's a preseason game. There are some players still finding their feet, arguably, Kieran, for example, Wigan. So, the people who are sort of finding their feet, I think, and it's preseason. It's the start of the year. So I don't really expect a lot in terms of pizzazz, ball movement from World Club challenges. I think a lot of it is just graft, teams working hard in defence. And I think Wigan worked pretty hard in defence, to be fair. It was a close game and either side could have won it legitimately, but I think they did enough to win.
I think you're very you like your defence, don't you? I like defence, but I do like attack. And I thought Wigan's first try, I'm a bit biased because I like Abbas-Miski, but beautiful pass out on the right hand side from Bevan French. I think it was a missed pass out to Miski and he went scootling in the corner. I thought that was absolutely superb. And then there was it a length of the field run? I think Dylan Edwards broke up the middle.
He did.
And passed to, I think it was Tyler May, and he was going in at the corner, and Jai Field came across and put an absolutely superbly timed tackle.
I thought Field and French showed a lot of class, and I think they could be. They could have a really good season. Playing where they're playing at the end of what I think is going to be probably a pretty good back line. I will get on to Super League predictions later, but I'm sort of expecting pretty big things from Wigan this year. I think a lot of people are.
No, I don't dispute that, mate.
I think they're going to offer a lot, especially from broken field. Kick returns and things like that. We could see Wigan really making a lot of territory and carving people up from the back. I think,
especially when the track's going to be a bit harder and a bit more firm, and it was a bit, as you say. But one try that did get disallowed by Wigan or for Wigan was I think they had a scrum in their own half, maybe 40 out, 30 out, and then I think they kicked it over the top, and Bevan French came legging it through, bounced up perfectly for him, went under the sticks.
Yep.
Everybody's excited.
It looked good.
It looked superb. Went to the video referee.
Yeah, he was like.
He didn't have both his feet. He didn't have both his feet behind the line, did he? So I think he admitted afterwards. He didn't admit afterwards he wasn't aware of that rule, which I found a bit perplexing. But for a professional sportsman,
it was definitely side, mate. That wasn't a try as long as as sure as the day is long. But it looked good, and it does give an indication as to what I think they might be looking to do in the future. He's got place to burn, and I think a kick downfield, you might think from a scrum, is a bit of a gamble, giving away possession. But I think even if you don't get the ball, you don't score a try, and you pin the opposition back in there sort of 10 or 20, it's not a bad result, mate, for them to be.
I always think this. I think sometimes, you know, the kick is the downtown kick is a very underused skill, because to get the opposition to work the ball upfield with six carries or 5 carries in the kick,
Hard yards.
Or hard yards, draining in energy, etc. To pump the ball downfield, get a decent chase on, pin the opposition down, and let them work out. Far, I don't know. In my mind, in my simple mind, I just think it's
the flip side, which I'm not naturally warm to downtown kicks in the way that you are, and the way you just described, is that when you've got the ball, they've got to tackle you, and you're wearing out more. The longer you've got the ball in the hand, and the more they're tackling, I would argue it's the defensive team which will wear and will tire more readily than the attacking team. So I sort of often would instinctively want to keep the ball in hand, make them work for it. And that's traditionally been the MO for rugby league teams since time immemorial. Keep the ball in hand, see how to set a 6, put a kick downfield. Can be a bit boring, but it works, which is why teams do it.
But it's variety. It's variety, though, isn't it? Seeing opportunities. I mean, presumably, I can't recall exactly, but was the Penrith fullback Dylan Edwards, was he up in the line? I don't recall. There was certainly a couple of chasers after Bevan French. I don't know where they came from, whether the wingers or what. But anyway, and just to conclude, just from my perspective, I thought how brilliant was it to see Nathan Cleary after the game, very magnanimous in defeat, but going round all the crowd, taking selfies, signing shirts. I think all the Penrith team did, but it just stuck out in my mind that like the world's best player was giving his time up to really promote himself, the team, and the event, I guess, in that nice sense. So
I think
chapeau.
Yeah, rugby league players are pretty aware. We're not a big sport like soccer, so I think we have to be pretty aware. Players have to be pretty grounded. They know where they get their coin from, and that's from the supporters. So I think most clubs, most players, most coaches are pretty good, mate, with supporters, to be fair. But it was good, and it was nice to see that sort of level of access that players still have. And what was, let's not forget, was a sellout crowd.
Crowd, good for atmosphere. On the whole, I liked it. It's a great concept. Keep it over here, and
It's worth pointing out, mate. It's on the back of some pretty good crowd performances the last couple of weeks in the Super League. We'll talk about it in a minute, but so fingers crossed.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So apparently the NRL are going to buy out Super League, Ken. So what have you got to say about that, mate?
My first reaction to that was it must be the silly season. It's pre-season because every now and again you get weird kind of theories that get floated out there. I remember one of the England teams was looking to put a team in the NRL for a while, or was it vice versa? And just the weird and wonderful, the wacky kind of suggestions. I originally put it into that folder, but I can see some merit behind it. I don't know if it'll ever really get off the ground. I don't know what sort of money they'd need. I don't understand who would actually, as much as the NRL might want to buy the competition, who'd be selling it? There's a lot of stakeholders involved. Who are they going to give the money to? There's
the £2.50 it's worth or whatever.
Who gets that? I think it's probably come at a good time for Super League to think about something like this, because it's fair to say the last TV deal wasn't great from Sky, but it's also fair to say, to counter that, there have been some pretty good, and this maybe because of IMG, which we've talked about in the past, maybe because of their influence. But I think there's more TV broadcast, or certainly broadcast partners, TV channels involved with rugby league now than there has been that I can ever recall, certainly in this country. I think the future is streaming. We talked about that on the old podcast a while ago, and I think they've got deals now for that. And so that augurs well, and that can only be a revenue stream which will grow in the future. So that balances out the fact that we've had a pretty poor TV deal at the moment. It's fair to say, though, that a lot of clubs, certainly lower down the pecking order, are struggling financially. So this may come at a good time for them. I do have a feel it's sort of a bit of deja vu. We had similar conversations when Rupert Murdoch kicked in with Super League.
That's true.
I think it was talking about mergers, and it was like a Featherstone Castleford Wakefield merger going on.
Oh yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
That would never happen in a month of Sundays. And so I somehow get the feeling that this is a little bit like that. This may not happen. It's a good talking point. We're great at coming up with these things in rugby league, but it does throw up some interesting.
It's fascinating. It is fascinating. I mean, just as an aside, one of the ideas that's been mooted is moving our season, Super League season, back to the winter.
Now,
I don't know.
That's my next point.
Seriously, the concept of standing on.
This is the balancing. This is the yin and the yang. I'm not a fan of playing back in winter. Right. I detest winter, and I think the game on the weekend the pitch didn't help. But if you fast forward 2 or 3 months, mate, when we're playing on top of the pitch and not through it, you'll see some fantastic attacking rugby. And I think I'm not a fan of winter rugby. I think maybe the pitches are possibly better than they used to be going back 20, 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, certainly. And so maybe it might not be as bad. Maybe I'm being unnecessarily doom-mongering. But I think playing on a winter pitch would be a backward step. Might help keep some blowout scores down. But I don't think we're going to see the attacking rugby, which we love. But this is the yin and the yang thing, mate. You've got to compare the pros and the cons, because I have to say I am quite excited if this does come to pass and they do go to winter rugby, which, as I say, I'm not a fan of. It lends itself very neatly for Ashes tours to be back on, which I think the game has missed. It would be great that players can travel. I know it's one of the things that they were. I saw, I think it was Andrew Johns, wasn't it? Or it might have been Matty Johns, actually, saying that one of the things he's heard rumours about, and one of the things he thinks it's a positive, is that players can guest. So NRL players that finish their season can come over here and play a little bit, and vice versa. So you might get.
Let me just quote what he said. Actually, he said a number of things. He said, "Let's imagine if the Roosters are faced with the situation of letting Joey Manu, for the punters, one of the best players in the world, go to French rugby, okay? Or we let him go and have a stint at Castleford." I almost pissed myself with that. Like, I mean, what
Castleford or Toulon? I mean, they're so similar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, come on, like
the Castleford Riviera.
Possibly Catalans, maybe Wigan, and a push Warrington, but Castleford, dear God, honestly, no.
He probably didn't choose his choice of Super League club very well, but it could be a good option to go to Catalan.
I mean, back in the day, mate. Do you remember back in? I got cast in mind back when I was following Saints back in the 80s when players were coming over post. I mean, it was pre-Super League era, if you like. But you get like the Mal Meningas and Paul Vortins and Michael O'Connor's at Saints alone coming over and doing like a short stint, and that was all very exciting. It added an exciting dimension to the competition and to the team and to the interest levels. But I just don't think it's practical anymore. I think if you signed up to a team, you signed up to a team. They said, well, it is. I mean, we're there saying, well, we can extend the season for these guys and then go and play Jack Wells. We might go and do a few games for, I don't know, St George Dragons or whatever. But in reality, hasn't that what was that collective bargaining thing in Australia where they've defined the maximum amount of games a player can play in a season? So you can only play a certain amount. I mean, obviously a season's worth of games, but then not be. I think I'm right in saying that. I mean, please, if anybody,
standard, isn't it? So they might get around.
But it is. But like, I don't know why.
It's a calendar year. It's a season.
Like some of these blokes are earning. Some of these blokes are probably earning more than some of the teams are spending over here. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'd love them to take over the game, but maybe to rationalise some of the elements, rules, and things like that. But primarily to use their marketing skills to promote the game, and hopefully coming from a country that's very big and teams that are not next door to each other will sort of influence the thinking around that. And I'm a great advocate for London, I am, and even though I'm a bit down on them at the moment, but the reality is, well marketed, budgeted team. If you remember, Melbourne Storm were a bit like that when they set off, weren't they? They were funded through a third party. Was it Sky or yeah, exactly. And they've grown into what they are now, which is a very well established NRL team always banging on the door,
game. They played the long game. They didn't, unlike, say, the Exiles or Lancashire and Yorkshire, they didn't try it for a season or two and then consign it to the rubbish bin because it didn't work. I think you do need a strategic long-term view on this, and we've always been poor at that in rugby league historically.
But I mean, again, that you see that for me, marketing Lancashire versus Yorkshire. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I'm a proud Lancastrian, and that's great. But does it appeal to anybody outside Lancashire and Yorkshire? No. Is it something that has any, whereas say Origin has now become so big, it's just 2 states in Australia, but in reality, the country wants to watch it, and
they stuck with it, mate. They marketed it, and that's the point that you're making. But I think there's not. So I'm also thinking I'd like to see what their marketing is like. It's a big organisation now, NRL, so they've obviously done something right. And, we'll talk about their revenues in a minute. So they've done, it feeds into this actually, because they've obviously got a war chest of money that they can spend. I'll mention that now, but you touched on one of the positives, and I said before, there's pros and cons to all these things. But if we could find a way that through this NRL ownership, if they could find a way to say to get a synergy, mate, where they can synergize the rules in both hemispheres. Yeah. Instead of Super League playing one set of rules and the NRL doing what they want to do with their own laws and rules, if we could find a way where both competitions were playing to the same rules, I would be all for that.
Yeah.
Confuse people unnecessarily, and it's a small game, but it might be a good one. But I just talked a little bit about their profits. So in 2023, they made $103 million in profit on the back of $700 million of turnover. Now, They're obviously aiming for $1 billion. That seems to be what Peter V'landys was talking about. And I think they're looking for, is it $1 billion TV or broadcast media deal in the future? Yep. That's what they'll be aiming for. And I think they've got $260 million of assets. I think there are some hotels in there, but there must be stadia and certainly a whole bunch of IP rights, I would argue. And it's interesting, their target, mate. They're obviously not sitting on their laurels. No, so they've set a target by 2027 that they want net assets of $500 million, $500 million. It's not a bad war chest to have in your back pocket, and that's only 3 years down the line. I think they're looking to get circa by the end of this 5-year deal in the NRL in Las Vegas. I think they're looking at something like $1 billion TV and maybe gambling deal might be thrown in there. I think there's a lot of cynics are saying, "Oh, Las Vegas is all about the gambling dollar." I don't know. I think they've already had a bit of luck with some TV broadcast partners over there, and if they stick with this 5-year deal, which they're talking about, I think they will. I think that could be a massive revenue stream for them, and I'm really pleased to hear that Super League teams are now thinking about it. Of course, you and I would lament this. We had a North American team only a little while ago that could tap into that. Seemed to be manna from heaven for those of us who are expansionists. But that's and I'm talking about the Toronto Wolfpack, of course. Yes, they're long gone. But the trick to this.
Well, in their previous guys, they still exist. They
still exist, of course, and we live in hope. I'd certainly like to see them back. But it's interesting why I think the NRL are doing so well, and it seems to me they've had a 25% increase in crowds and 14% increase in TV audience. So they're increasing bums on seats and eyeballs on screens.
Yeah.
That's got to lead to better advertising and sponsorship packages coming into the game, and of course merchandise sales and all that. So I think we've been poor with merchandise sales. I'd love to see an NRL deal grab hold of that and give it a shake. So pros and cons.
I know exactly why you want the merchandise sales to go up, mate, because you probably give them $1 million of your own money on the merch.
I do like my mercho, mate. I do like my mercho. But let's watch this space, mate. It's still the silly season. We're only just started the season here. The NRL is yet to kick off, really. I know there's been trial matches and whatnot. World Club Challenge is their first hit out in Angra, I would think. But let's see what happens when the season settles down.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree. I'm pretty. On the surface of it, I'm pretty excited by that possibility. Not the possibility of moving to winter, but certainly the possibility of NRL engaging more actively in the management and development and promotion of our game over here, because they know how to do it. And sadly, we don't have the coin to do it, do we? And I think that's the.
It's money. But I'm really surprised that they're talking about buying the Super League as their method of expansion, because And it's probably not for tonight. We'll talk about it another time. But expansion, is a conversation which is back on the cards in Australia again. And some people are talking about the competition of 20 teams, from the current 17. So perhaps another podcast in the future, mate, we will talk about potential expansion.
Yeah.
Seems to be a perpetual merry-go-round for rugby league, doesn't it? Expansion teams and
always, mate. Always stick with them. Stick with them. On that lovely segue, Ken. Lovely segue. We just like to talk about our favourites, our London Broncos. They started the weekend. Obviously the second game is the season. They went to Saints in the first game of the season. They probably couldn't have asked for a tougher challenge, and obviously were quite heavily beaten. But then they turned around this weekend to play Catalan Dragons, who were grand finalists last year, and certainly from an presentation perspective and a crowd perspective, they did really well. I don't think on the field they were overly competitive, and has been described as men against boys and such like. But let's not focus too much on that for now. But in terms of the crowd, I think they had over 5,000, which I think was really, really good. But it's interesting. I was just going
to say, mate, you mentioned Melbourne Storm before, and I remember when they first started, and it might have been Wayne Bennett or somebody, a rugby league luminary, said, if you get the front office right, then everything else comes. And they did. They got some really good people in. I think John Rebo was down there at one point. He was general manager or something. And so they got good back office staff in, and it created. We talk about it a lot, don't we, in rugby league? They got the right culture. And coaching staff followed, and then the players followed after that. And so maybe there's something that we can hope for. So if we get the off-field stuff right first, the on-field stuff might come after that. But yeah, it was a good way to start the season. I think might be fair to say they were well beaten, but maybe not disgraced. You might think with scores as high and as correspondingly as low for the Broncos, maybe it was. But it's always going to be hard for them. We know it's going to be hard. Even before we talk about the IMG scores, it will be hard from this year. I don't think anyone's under any illusion, but you might think that maybe it was as good as it was going to get. Would that be fair to say?
No, it was absolutely. And I was sort of reflecting on the false dawns. Is that the right thing to say? So we moved to a new venue, we big it up, and then underperform in front of a new audience. So I was just doing a little bit of research, so I think the only time we've actually won going to a new venue, from what I can see, is we beat the Huddersfield-Sheffield conglomerate in 2000 in the first game at the Valley.
Shuddersfield.
It attracted a massive 2,856. Then in 2002, we moved to Griffin Park, which I probably favoured most of all the places we went to. First game, got pumped at home, 32-6 by Wigan.
You're not even going to tell me about the game at the Stoop, are you? That was awful.
No, but do you remember that game where everybody was so pumped up? First outing as QRL, Saints, full house, just so atmospheric.
8 or 9 or 10,000 people. There was some.
It was 8,500.
There you go.
And a damp squib, a 16-40 defeat. Yeah, exactly. Then. Then we were at the Stoop for quite a number of years, and obviously things went downhill. We ended up going to the Hive. Because I think we were about to go into administration, and it took us to the Hive. First game at the Hive, Salford lost 44-18.
I don't remember that. I would have been at that game actually, because I was a season ticket holder for many years either side of that move. But yeah, I think
my point being, and then just to obviously the game against Catalans, but then when we moved to Plough Lane, we obviously went part time, and then we played Widnes. Again, first game for anybody to feast their eyes on rugby league, and we got pumped 34-12. So we sort of don't do ourselves any favours, do we, in terms of performance and engendering right, okay, I like this side. Not necessarily winning, but like, I really hope that performance. I really hope that a good number of the 5,000 who turned up, will return. Because let's be honest with you, there's not going to be many Frenchies there. They're going to be mostly London Broncos fans, all local, and hopefully the event sold itself just as much to compensate or counteract the fact that the performance wasn't really that good. I mean, I don't know. It was funny because obviously I didn't. Well, neither of us attended, but I will go this year at some point. I will. But you were going on the website onto the ticket, and you were thinking, you can't buy tickets here. It's all sold out, and it was brilliant because it's the first time. Normally, you could roll up to a game and think, oh, yeah, no problem, we'll get a ticket. So that was a real positive, and I think just developing that. And again, to your point, I think it's come a little too late because the IMG input and drivers now to make clubs a business and to a model that everybody voted for. We were always going to be behind the eight ball on every feature. We have. I've said this a few times on our podcast, but we've just let ourselves down over the years, and it's just been a gradual degradation of.
It's shifting the deck chairs, Titanic, mate.
It has, mate. I mean,
it's reacting. There's nothing strategic there.
There's nothing strategic about it, and that's sad, really. And there's times. So all the elements that we're failing on, we were failing on 3, 4, 5 years ago, but we haven't done anything about, as a club, haven't done anything about it. And it seems now we've only just realised it as a result of IMG. Like I'd say, the social media now is fantastic. It's pretty fantastic. It's a website looks really, really good. We've not got a main jersey sponsor, which is a bit embarrassing. But I read today that we've got one signed up, and one of the reasons that people haven't been receiving their jerseys that they ordered before Christmas was just to make sure they were all emblazoned with the right, which is obviously really, really good. And I just think. Yeah, it's a difficult one because on the flip side, you've got one of the big mainstays, one of the big positives we always had is the academy, hasn't it, and the junior pathway, and for good reason. David's decided that he doesn't want to go that route. It's £250,000 better spent on probably advertising or something rather than because
I understand.
What does it get you? What does it get you at the end of the day? The best ones get cherry picked to go up north, or go up north, and the other ones go off to championship clubs, say, and quite a lot of them have now come back, and they're no better than they were when they left us. If anything, probably not as good. So it's great to say we've got this London side full of London players, and that's great. But in reality, that brings with it a question about quality. I'm sure, having watched 2 games now, you can see it, really. You can see it. I think
the idea would be to supplement those local players. I'm sure that would be the goal of everyone that is, in favour of using juniors. I'm in favour, as much as I think IMG, that has not worked for the Broncos, and everyone can see that. But I'm in favour of what they've done. And I think it's what franchising should have done, and I think did do to some degree back in the day, where it focused clubs to focus on standards. And whatever those standards are you want to measure, stadia, junior pathway development, fan experience, social media presence, website presence, all that sort of stuff should be measured. And if clubs don't need to, then they won't, because they'll take the easier and the cheaper way.
The least resistance, mate, 100%.
It's a false economy, cutting money on things like junior pathway development, I think, and things like social media and getting out in the community and getting some development officers to do work in schools and being seen locally. You need to pay someone to do that. So I think it's a false economy cutting those costs, because that arguably might be why they've got 5,000 people and doing a little bit of local newspaper advertising and things like that. So that's a good thing, but it does tie the two subjects, what we've been talking about, quite well. So you're talking about the NRL marketing expertise and Nous coming in. You can just imagine a situation where they've gone, we'll send a couple of marketing dudes over there. We'll parachute one into London, and we'll put one in various other clubs or whatever. And I think the difference that it could make would probably disproportionately help Broncos. And there might be, say, Wigan, who I would argue would probably do a very good job of that anyway.
I think you're 100% right. I think really, if this was to go ahead, this NRL buyout, I think one of the possible saviours, it could be one of the saviours for London, because really, if we don't get, maybe I've been a bit doom and gloom here, but if we don't remain in Super League, which is highly likely, from the IMG perspective, and this is on a rolling basis, there's going to be a number of years before we can rectify those scores to get the rolling average to a level where we could be an A grade, then we're almost consigned to the Championship, and that's not decrying the Championship at all. And maybe that's just a great place for us to
Strong
be.
Competition, but we aspire. I mean,
but aspirationally, yeah.
London,
I mean, that's right.
It possibly be great to say, we always say Super League needs London, and maybe they don't. And if the NRL get involved and they can market it, then maybe it doesn't. But I think, to be a national competition, do you want the capital involved? I would always argue yes. So, mate, let's see. But and this is a very clumsy segue, but I wanted to talk a little bit about a bit of a debating point, really, in rugby league at the moment, and that is the amount of red and yellow cards that we've seen in the first.
You've brandished a few red and yellow cards, haven't you? If one of my favourite pastimes was pulling out the old red card from time to time. But we should also say there's a couple of things, and there has been an increase in cards that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Good to see that they took a little pragmatic, common sense approach for the World Club Challenge. And I think common sense is the word that they've used for rounds going forward, where they're allowing a little bit of leeway, a little bit of discretion with referees going forward. But a couple of points I would make is that it's very often the case pre-season that with new laws, when they get trotted out, there's always a settling in period. And for every season I can remember, someone's the referees are blowing the pee out of the whistle, and it's leading to a unedifying spectacle. And it's not, I'm not going to go and watch the games anymore. I've given up on rugby league, and it's awful. But you hear all the stuff that comes out from some supporters. It seems perpetual. So it's fair to say that every season has a learning curve. But actually, the other point is, and I don't know whether I agree with it or not, but do we, and the game has decided, I think by and large, that we're aware that head injuries lead to long-term and very unfortunate health implications, and we don't know yet whether motor neuron disease is linked. That there seems to be some correlation. But, everyone would agree that what's happened to Rob Burrow and Dottie Weir and a lot of other guys, even in the world of soccer, where there seems to be a higher prevalence, where there's some sort of head contact, head injuries could play could feed into that. So I think we need to be aware that this is being done for the right reason. A lot of people are saying it's made a mockery of the game and it's reduced it as a spectacle, and it's not netball after all, and all those sorts of refrains that you hear. But people have got to realise that actually we can't accept these sort of long-term health implications for ex-players. Obviously, there's the current legal situation with ex-players that are making a legal claim, and arguably that's what's driven a lot of this. So maybe those people who are feeling a bit negative about it should direct their ire towards those players. But those players, if they have ironically, two of the dirtiest bastards ever to play the game. Yeah, there you go.
But it's also, if these are young men by and large, mate. And I don't think any person, let alone a rugby league supporter, would want to wish ill on any player or any person, full stop. And if someone's injured themselves by playing rugby league, we should have some duty of care to consider ways that we can reduce that risk. And I think that's what the RFL have done. It's really the players. It's sort of disappointing when you hear about players' unions saying, we potentially. I don't know that players are saying it, but certainly people around the game are saying it. Maybe the players could go on strike to get the strength of their feeling across. It's for their benefit that these laws have been put in place. So, I agree. No one likes to see games decided by red and yellow cards. But maybe let's just give it a little while and let it bed in, and let's just see if it sets in. It's been done for the right reasons. Let's see if maybe the argument is players should address their tackling technique a little more.
But I think that is the point that was being made. I think I read an article, an interview with Tony Smith, who was basically saying that it takes time for players to adapt their tackling techniques. I mean, obviously it's been brought into close view through some incidents recently. You had was it Liam Watts got sent off for Castleford against Leeds? I think I'm right in saying that.
Was the 11th player into the first round to be sent off?
And it looked, frankly, like he wasn't even trying. I saw a snap of him and Westerman, and neither of them were sort of, like in a body position to tackle. They were just going in like two shoulders together. I thought,
yeah,
come on, like that's not good news.
No.
But on the contra side, the New Brown incident over the weekend, there was no malice from him to Ben Curry, I think it was, who obviously bled. But into the rules of the game, he had to get a red card. But it just seemed common sense had just gone out there at that point. That's where. But then the contrary is, where does common sense lead you? Because that leaves the referee open to.
Do the laws need to be applied? Because rugby league supporters, being rugby league supporters, would be the first people to say, "Well, hang on a minute," and they've done this already. So and so never got sent off last week, and that was a bad one, and now you're sending this guy off for one which is nowhere near as bad. But I wonder whether maybe we're overreacting, because I looked at this. There were 13 cards raised in the first round, and there were 4 of those were reds. So this isn't a played proportion of red cards being dished out willy-nilly. So we've got, then we had, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards in the second round, one of which was red. That was New Brown. There was no other reds.
Right, yeah.
So are we overreacting? Do we want to maybe let it settle down? All the others are for yellows. And in the first round, there were 6 cards for head high or dangerous contact. Those sorts of, sort of head related penalties. But there were only 4 of those were red. So I don't know that we're talking about a crisis, or there isn't a plague of cards being dished out at the moment. So I think we should hold it in proportion. And we've seen certain teams overrepresented, arguably you might say, with the cards. But I know Hull have had some experience with cards.
Yeah.
But what about other clubs? Have the Broncos had any players sent off? I haven't seen it. No. So maybe some clubs are sailing close to the wind with their technique, and they need to address that. So let's see what the third round brings.
No, I agree. I mean, Hull were a bit lucky on the New Brown, but the first round game, did they have 2 sent off in that game, or certainly 1? Was it Franklin Pele? He put the bloke down and then came out with this huge swinging haymaker on the ground. I thought
that was awful.
Slightly reminiscent of Flower on Lance O'Hire back in the day, like the guy prone on the floor and just having no chance. I just thought it was diabolical. It didn't look good. It's diabolical.
The mitigation there was, I don't think there was much contact, but I think
the intent was there, mate. The intent.
I'm just going to say you have to be a very charitable individual to say that there was no intent involved in that, because I think.
No, exactly. It's
a pity, because it was a reasonable tackle leading up to that, but I think that was possibly right. He was one of the reds, one of the 4 reds in the first round, and I don't think you argue too much. But talking about New Brown, I think he had a classy response to that. He accepted it, moved on, said, "Come on, let's." And I think he was one of the guys that have raised this situation about, is this sustainable? The level of cards. Let's not let it destroy rugby league and things like that. It was a very well worded response, I thought. But I think maybe let's see where we are in 2 or 3 weeks with the card issue.
Yeah.
My gut feel is I don't think it's going to be the problem that we're thinking it is at the moment.
Let's hope not, mate. So it's too good a game to be spoiled. We want to keep the aggression, but we
don't want it to affect the ladder, how teams will finish at the end of the season.
Oh, I love it. You're on fire, mate. You're on fire.
I'd like to think so.
So we're going to use a little of the technology. I want to see if this will work, because I don't know whether it will. It's a bit limited, but hopefully we can. Because I can't. Can you see anything there?
I can, mate. Yes, I hope our listeners and viewers can see. That's obviously a Photoshop photo of me.
Well, let's. So as you say, we went around the world to get input on. This is the NRL ladder, the top 8, then the grand finalists, so grand final winners, and then the wooden spoonies. So first is Shane Rambling, known as Rambo, formerly coach and top player of the Centurions. Then
disgusted in
second,
Rambo, actually, and all the other players who put the Dragons as wooden spooners. I mean, I'm offended.
You're biased.
I'm wounded.
You're biased.
Well, I possibly am.
You really are biased. We'll go into the depth in, but let's just say who we've got, because obviously it's very. So there's me, pictures with my friends Nathan and Dally. Then the one and only Steve Kenworthy, whose rugby league knowledge could be written on a postage stamp. Then London Broncos and horse racing fanatic Ian Gatwood. Obviously didn't quite understand it was like top 8 grand final winner, and but anyway, we at least he got 6 in there. Looking pretty cool in his shades, Mr. Sam Wingard, another former coach of Centurions. Then we have the Viking, Mr. Paul Quill of Chingford, legend. Then we have some, I don't quite know what to say about that. Is that some guy in a St. George Dragons top? Ken Edwards, is that Ken Edwards?
I believe, mate, you'll see that I'm actually drinking some red wine out of what looks like an old jam jar. But I think that was when we went to Perpignan a couple of years ago.
Oh, it was, right. It was when you were with Ollie Fontaine. And then last but not least, captain of Birmingham University Rugby League team and stalwart of Centurions, Mr. Rob Campbell. So we have a real mix. I think the one common theme overall is that people are thinking the Dragons are going to go bottom, mate. I know you don't follow NRL as much as you used to, but I think that's a fair call, mate, to be fair.
I think there's some things I'm looking at for the NRL this year. And one is, I think everyone's either got the Tigers or the Dragons for the bottom. I see Sam says the Dolphins. But both teams, it's fair to say, have struggled off the field in recent years, and they've certainly struggled on the field.
Yeah.
But both the Tigers and the Dragons rather have had some changes in the off field. I briefly mentioned about culture in rugby league clubs, and I think so the likes of Flanagan coming in to the Dragons, and I know Benji Marshall is probably going to try and do something similar there. It's a new broom sweeps clean and all that. They've had some changes in the back office, the boardroom and things like that, both those clubs. And I'll be really keen to see if the start of this culture change starts this year. You'd like to think for those clubs that it would.
Yeah.
Something has not been right there for a while. Maybe these changes with coaching staff and backroom staff might make a difference. So bizarrely, the clubs I'm going to be looking at this year are those two cellar dwellers, let's face it. And I think we'll probably want to see whether the Panthers might solidify their position or they're being touted a little bit as one of the great modern teams of all, certainly of the recent modern era. Whether they can do I know 3 titles is a 3-peat, but what's it for? So not really a 4-peat. Maybe someone could.
4-peat. No, I don't know, mate. I don't know. But
drop us a line and let us know what that is. But
absolutely. But the Panthers are interesting, aren't they? Because they do seem to each year they seem to lose 1 or 2 influential players, but they still say they're still strong. Overall, they're still strong. They're keeping, obviously they've had Luai and Cleary in the halves now for a number of years. And obviously that'll change next year when Luai goes off to the Tigers. But in the off season they lost Stephen Crichton, one of the world's best players, and Spencer Leniu, he's gone, and I know 1 or 2 other players. So you're right, it will be interesting to see how Panthers fare this year, and likewise Broncos. To be fair, Broncos lost, got rid of 4 really important players like Kurt Cable went to the Warriors, Flegler and Herbie Farmworth went off to Dolphins, and then Palisai went off to Titans. So they've lost some really, really solid players. So again, it'll be interesting to see how they form. Because I think if you've got a stable squad, 1 or 2 changes, you keep that stability, don't you? If you go in wholesale changes like bloody Bulldogs, looks like there's I didn't count, but like 10 out and 10 in. I don't know what it was. It was just ridiculous.
No one's picked the Bulldogs to finish in the top 8 there, and I think I'm the only one that says the Broncos won't make the top 4. So everyone's got the Broncos thereabouts. So it'd be interesting to see. They're always going to be thereabouts, aren't they? So
you didn't even identify the greatest team the Warriors in your top 8. I find that absolutely.
I didn't realise this was like a
exasperating.
comedy show, mate. What the hell are you talking about? Well, let's see. There are some people who've got the Warriors there, and I'm thinking.
Well, I've got them as winners, mate. I think they're going to go. I mean, they've lost 1 or 2 players, but they brought Capewell in, as I say, from Broncos. They've Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's come back from Rugby.
Yeah.
The halfback Chanel Harris Tavita's just come in. Did I mention I'm going over to Auckland to watch them first game of the season against
You have mentioned it probably 10 or 20 times, I think, in the last.
I don't wish to bore you on that one, but
don't.
And you got Roosters. That's an interesting one, a very interesting one. What sort of?
I just don't think you could discount the Roosters ever, really. Certainly in the modern era, they're always going to be there or thereabouts. And I think sort of similar things with South. And that's kind of maybe as a traditionalist or as maybe someone who dwells on things historically. I look at through rose-coloured glasses. Maybe that's affecting my prediction, but it'd be very easy to say, let's see if the Panthers do it, which a lot of people are saying they're going to back up for a 4 in a row. But I think the odds are that probably won't happen, because history just doesn't work that way. I think the NRL's a very even competition, and I think anyone could get up on the day. So they've got to be.
Yeah.
I think.
But you are aware. I think I'm right in saying that neither of those sides made the 8 last year.
Well, no,
it'd be a big turnaround. It'd be a big turnaround for them to get in there.
Well, mate, I've stuck my neck or my whatever other appendage you want to think about on the chopping block. So let's have a look at the Super League.
The
South's flattered to deceive, mate. They could easily have been. They sort of faltered in the home stretch, didn't they? And they would have been there otherwise.
Yeah. So we've flashed up the Super League predictions there, mate. Only one additional input. That was from your good friend and my good friend, Mr. Dan Bale of the Midlands.
Bailey.
Bit of a legend in his own lunchbox, but once again. Similar theme, lots of guys shouting out the Warriors, lots of guys shouting out the Broncos for Wooden Spoon. I think it's hard to. I mean, the Tigers, ironically, the Castleford rather than West Tigers, their recruitment has been probably as average as the Broncos, but they do have pretty steady, moderately good halfbacks, which I think counts for a lot in the game, doesn't it? If you've got experience and some level of quality in the halfbacks, I think that makes a heck of a difference. But although I'm saying that, Rampo has got the Cast Tigers in 6th. I'm making the 6th, which I find slightly amusing. But,
nearly as adventurous as my Roosters in South, mate. But look, you got.
Well, that's true.
You're a mug if you gamble on a sure thing, mate. You got to stick your neck out and go for something a little bit off the range. And
everybody's got in there. Everybody's got in there. Warriors, Saints, Dragons, and Robins. Apart from Quill, who only put 4 of them down. But everybody.
He's
biased. He's a big Saints fan, so he's biased anyway, sort of thing. So we'll ignore him. But yeah, so everybody's got the 4 teams in there plus a couple of variants. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Interesting. Quilly went with Hull. I mean, I don't think they've been doing too well, but I'm not sure they're cellar dwellers, to be fair. But
and a couple of us, I picked the Leopards, mate, which I think have flattered and gone quite well over the last year or so. I mean,
yeah, I mean they recruit quite well. They got Matt Moylan from the Sharks, didn't they? And he's an exceptionally good player. And the one team that you always think should do better than they do are the Warrington Wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, I know. Steve,
the
myth, Kenworthy has got them as number 1, which probably is the kiss of death for them, to be fair. It's probably the kiss of death and grand final winners.
You never know, mate. Sam Burgess might have a electrifying effect on his charges. Let's see. This is the beauty of pre-season, mate. I think a month in, mate.
I look forward to referencing back to these tables towards the end of the season, see who's. I'm sure we won't be far out, but anyway, let's park that. Right.
Super League is easier to call than the NRL, to be fair.
Yeah, well, exactly, mate. So we are punters. We are off to Vegas next week. We are Myself and Mr. Edwards are flying out on Thursday. We're hopefully meeting up with a few people at Heathrow, flying out to the Sin City via Salt Lake City, of all places. And then Mr. Kenworth is joining us the following day. So we are looking forward to it. So Ken, what are you looking forward to most, mate? What's you thinking?
I think it's fair to say, and I'm a fan of what I'm about to say, if I don't wake up on the first day proper, waking up in Las Vegas after our first night out, and there's not a tiger in the toilet and an abandoned baby on the floor of our suite, then I will have considered the evening to be a write-off and a failure. So I've got high expectations for carnage, Gary. I may yet see you. I think possibly one of the greatest athletic contributions I've seen of any human being. That time where you high jumped over a row of beds to get to the toilet as you puked in Edinburgh that time. It was an athletic marvel, I have to say. So
it was, mate. It was marvelous. It was marveling. I don't think it was going to be that bad, mate. I gave the beers a bit of a nudge at the weekend, so I'm having a dry couple of days, and then obviously
build up,
getting on it in Vegas. So I think that the general plan for anybody who's interested, and for those who aren't, anyway, is we are flying out. We're going to again go to an event in the evening, out on a Thursday evening, some sort of big NRL event, which hopefully we might get to see Matty Johns and the team. Then
looking forward to seeing you as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, he sends his regards. And then on Friday, probably a bit of a lay-in, then taking in Blondie's. Blondie's is a pub where it seems that hundreds of NRL fans are going to turn up at.
Yes.
Probably, well, to see us, obviously, but secondly, to spend $20 on as much as you can drink and eat.
That is.
I mean, what shape are we going to be in when Steve arrives at 6 o'clock? I don't know what shape we're going to be in at all.
If I'm not shit-faced again, I'll be disappointed. So Steve will have some catching up to do with his free ale and no doubt bourbon and Diet Coke, because
no doubt he's got a spreadsheet working out what he can have at what point, and he's spreadsheeting it away at the moment.
Steve. And
then of course, we're looking forward to the tailgate party pre-game on
the actual games
Saturday. See you, mate.
And the actual games.
Well, and I think that goes without saying. I mean, the games are. I can't wait. I mean, the stadium sounds absolutely superb. Sounds like there's loads going on in Vegas that weekend. U2 are playing. Big Irish band. I'm sure you're aware of them. So anyway, we're gonna take some footage, a few clips while we're away, a little bit of pre and post alcoholic intake clips, and we'll seamlessly sew those together for a bit of feedback to you guys, let you know how we went on and
get a time lapse
experience was like. Get
a time lapse of you getting your Mike Tyson tattoo on your face. That could be
that's good, mate. That's good. Looking forward to it. Anyway, look, we've gone well over the hour, mate. It's been real good fun getting back. I think that was excellent. Hope you listeners and viewers enjoyed that, and hopefully we'll be back in the next couple of weeks to give you a bit of an update on Vegas. Then after a little break, because GT's off to Australia to catch a few NRL games, and no doubt that will be very, very enjoyable.
Perhaps some footage of your NRL experiences, mate, when you're
happy to provide. I'm definitely going to see the Dolphins and North Queensland. I'm hoping Dan Wortley said he's going to speak to his mate Anthony Seibold, to get us some hospitality passes and watch the game together. I think they're playing. They're playing. One of the other guys were in Vegas. I can't think who they're playing, but anyway, that aside, be good to see Wortley. Good to see Drewy. Anyway, latest, mate.
Latest and bonjour.
And bonjour and au revoir.
All right, mate. Is that it?